Some senior members of the AmaZulu royal family say the dismissal of officials attached to King Misuzulu KaZwelithini is part of an orchestrated plan to destabilise the operations of the Ingonyama Trust Board for personal gains. They say this is also aimed at undermining reconciliation within the family. The members, led by Prince Thokozani Zulu, who is backing Prince Makate as the heir to the Zulu throne, held a media briefing in Durban. Among the officials dismissed by the king are Ingonyama Trust Chairperson Inkosi Tanduyise Mzimela and Prince Africa Zulu, who was a spokesperson for the king. The group has also criticized the king for appointing himself as the chairperson of the board. They further raised concerns about the newly appointed Prime Minister of the Zulu Nation, Reverend Thulasizwe Buthelezi, citing that he is inexperienced and holds no knowledge about the Zulu culture and customs.
We are at variance with the appointment of Reverend Thulasizwe Buthelezi, because even his appointment is at variance with Zulu customary practice. When having regard to the occasion at which he was appointed. He was appointed during the commemoration of 145 years of the Battle of Isandlwane, when in fact the actual customary location for such appointments is the royal crawl, the main royal crawl, Isibaya School, which we know that during our time that crawl is a Nyogeni Royal Palace crawl. But also, it's not only the issue of the location, but also the timing of the appointment, because we know that such appointments are conducted during the hosting of the First Fruits Festival, which is the festival for the Zulu royal family. But most importantly, what worries us is the fact that Reverend Buthelezi's appointment took place at a time when not all of cultural cleansing rituals had been observed pursuant to the demise of the late Prince Buthelezi. May his soul rest in peace.
To talk to us a little bit more about this, Professor Musa Xulu, very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. It was a pleasure to speak to you, Prof. Just your thoughts around these latest developments. It seems and appears quite messy. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, thank you very much, Tsabiso, and your audience. It's becoming clear now that the case of King Misuzulu and the Zulu royal family is just a case of a succession plan gone wrong. And it can be used at business school, it can be used anywhere else in the country and the world. That there was simply no preparation for this time. And his reign, and of course that of the Zulu royal family at the moment, which is very well divided, is such that you can see that there was no thought of what could go wrong after the demise of the king and after the demise of Prince Makate. Right now, you can see that no one has faith in King Misuzulu. He made a blunder by choosing a political party, the IFP, as his political party, and then of course started, all these problems now of every time he makes an appointment or disappointment, there's an outcry. It shows maybe that sometimes traditional leadership systems in South Africa and the ANC government has done well to accommodate traditional leaders in the new dispensation of the democratic South Africa. But there's just more work that needs to be done to make them understand that it's no longer 1800s, it's now the 2000s, and therefore the demands on their skills and knowledge have become much broader than it was before. I think there was simply no preparation for the succession after the demise of King Zwelithini, and therefore the problem is that I think it's not the end of it. You never hear the end of it. We keep coming from left, right, and center because everyone now seems to be saying, we thought he's the right king, but now it doesn't look like that, etc.
Prof, you say it would seem that the problem is with the lack of a succession plan from when Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi was Prime Minister. I'd like to ask, would one dare say it goes even further than the succession plan of Prime Minister, but the succession plan of Inkosi Misuzulu KaZwelithini, given the unexpected death of Isilo then, as in the unfortunate circumstances, the fact that his mother was the Queen Regent, but even then the circumstances would obviously not have been planned. Could it have been a poison chalice in itself, given that there was already contestation of whether or not Inkosi Misuzulu was fit to hold the particular position?
Yes, no, thanks very much, Tsebiso. I've had some discussions with traditional leadership structures, and we've come to say that maybe, like Contralesa, maybe we shouldn't be just looking at the cultural aspect, the customary aspects, because now in modern times, a person must also be fit for a job, and there must be a job description, and there must be qualities, and the families must be told that you must look for these qualities. I think it didn't happen. His father died, passed on without appointing him at all. And his mother appointed him and then said, if he's not fit, then they will have to look at another person. So there was always a doubt, even from his parents, that he could do this job. And if you look back, the whole thing, it was about Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. And now it's becoming very clear in the absence of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi that maybe only the customary aspects were considered, but maybe the fitness of the person was not considered. And it's a lesson that COPTA nationally should take into account. When you look at Zimbabwe, for example, they have a model that looks at profiling traditional leaders and looking at what kind of qualifications or what kind of personalities should be accepted, not just because I'm facing or because my mother as Lobola was paid by many people and therefore it should be. I think South Africa and the ANC government has done very well to look after the traditional leaders. Should now look into the next step. What do we do about making sure that the person that occupies the position is also, in terms of qualification and knowledge and experience? Because what we saw today, with Prince Africa, just shows that the royal family is very unhappy, it's very depressed.
It seems like not only a house divided, but at very fundamental points. The fact that you have the contestation of power for the position of Isilo between the brothers, but the fact that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi himself, when he passed on, there was a great deal of unhappiness around positions in the Ingonyama Trust. And we now hear Prince Africa, who is claiming that he has been sacked because he was trying to address the issue of lack of transparency and people who are trying to loot the coffers of the AmaZulu nation. But then at the same time, you have the king who's saying, but no, I have actually tried to get rid of you before, as well as Inkosi Mzimela, that he's been trying to say to him that he should vacate the position as chairperson of the Ingonyama Trust, but he was ducking and diving.
Oh yes, so there's something called human resources management, which every executive or anybody who is CEO of something should be able to do. What has happened there? Once Inkosi Mzimela was appointed against the wishes of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, what should have happened if whoever appointed him had a knowledge of these things. He should have been groomed. There should have been some plan to make sure that Inkosi Mzimela eventually has a grasp of the duties, because obviously Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi and Inkosi Misuzulu could not sit eye to eye on the issue, which was very unfortunate. But that was not done. And therefore, when Prince Africa starts saying stuff that maybe Inkosi Mzimela was dismissed because he couldn't sign certain things, because Prince Africa is an insider, it's difficult to disagree with him. That is one. And then you have the appointment of Mr. Thulasizwe Buthelezi, which was very unfortunate, because really, I mean, there was hope among the Zulu nation and all others, and Contralesa was saying that in future we should have something, a code that says anybody occupying a high-ranking position should not occupy these positions in traditional leadership system. Thulasizwe Buthelezi is an IFP person, and the IFP is now using that closeness of him to the king to campaign for elections, which I think, of course, eventually no one will accept it, because although the king has said the IFP is his political party, but in reality, you can't have a kingdom that is into political disputes and political contestations.
Now, just finally on the issue of the Prime Minister himself, Reverend Buthelezi, we're now hearing that there's a belief that he himself is not fit for purpose. Now, when it comes to the Royal House and the positions that one would occupy, so some things can be taught, but things such as pedigree, things such as decorum and such, which people believe are born ingrained in one, has there been a deviation in where the AmaZulu nation finds itself and the choice of Prime Minister at the moment? What can be done to remedy it? Or is this going to have a domino effect and further tear apart the royal household?
Well, the domino effect will be dividing the Zulu royal household and the Zulu nation along party political lines, with a feeling that maybe King Misuzulu is an IFP front. But the problem, of course, with Thulasizwe Buthelezi is that his only power base is that he's a mayor of Zululand district municipality. I don't think he has any other power base. There was a lot of expectation that Inkosi Xulu Buthelezi, the son of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, would be the one suitable and very acceptable across the lines. Because, as you know, his father was generally accepted around South Africa and the world as a very knowledgeable person in traditional affairs. Now, Reverend Thulasizwe Buthelezi does not come from that family. He comes from a minor family from far away from Buthelezis of Ingonyama. And that on its own has created huge problems. You can hear sometimes that people like leaders of the IFP, SABC, and all those people who don't have the stature of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, when they come and say, okay, now they think that maybe somebody is fighting. No one is fighting. I think the Zulu family is genuinely concerned that this whole thing that has happened ever since there was that war between Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the late, may his soul rest in peace, and it was Misuzulu, starting in April last year, has come to where it is now. And there's just no way out, because you can see now what's going to happen. There's a case in Pietermaritzburg High Court where members of the Zulu royal family are asking the provincial government to withdraw all kind of support, including salaries, from for King Misuzulu. And the provincial government and the president have decided to say they are not going to oppose that. Now, what's going to come out of that if the court rules in favor of the applicants, then King Misuzulu will suddenly have no money to pay for the lawyers. He will have no salary. His cars will be taken away because they say he's doing all these things, whereas they should be focusing on the court cases and making sure that the Zulu royal family comes together. I think what has happened is that the Zulu royal family has moved away from him, and of course coming west now because he's going to be categorizing the issues of the people.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, sharing your views, giving us insights. Historian, cultural and political expert, Professor Musa Xulu.